Hey Booktube, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Laura if you're new here, and today I'm doing the Reading Slump Tag. I saw this tag on Taylor's channel over at Made Between the Pages, but it was created by Hugo Reads, I think, so both of those I will link down below for you. But this tag is pretty self-explanatory. It's just a tag about reading slumps, which if you watch my videos, then you probably know that I frequently get into reading slumps, like literally all the time. It's horrible. So as something that I experience probably like every couple of weeks, this tag is perfect for me. So here we go. Question 1 is, do reading slumps happen to you a lot? And I've already answered this. Yes, they do. Literally always. That's just kind of how my reading moods cycle. I'll be really in the mood to read and I'll get through like 5 books in 2 weeks, and then I kind of burn out and I have a week or two of like still reading but not nearly as much, and sometimes not at all. So it's kind of always been how my reading mood cycle, kind of the way it goes for me, which is kind of annoying, but like whatever, not a big deal, I guess. I still get lots of reading done in those weeks where I'm in a really big reading mood, and then my slumps only last from, 1 to 2 weeks usually. 2 weeks is like a long time for me. It's normally just like a couple of days to a week, but they have lasted a bit longer sometimes. So question 2 is, how long was your longest reading slump? Honestly, probably like the last 2 years of university. I was still reading a lot, not a lot. I was still reading, but it would take me about 2 to 3 weeks on average to get through a book. I was struggling to get to my 25 books a year goal on Goodreads. Really throughout all of university, I was struggling to read, but the first 2 years, I was still reading a lot of manga. But then when I stopped reading manga in the last few years, my number of books read just plummeted so far. And again, I was still reading, but it would take me forever to read books because I would read a good chunk of it in one day and then not touch it for a few days, and then, read for half an hour another day, and then not touch it again for another week. And that was just kind of how those several years went, just because university was so tiring and I was exhausted all the time, and I really didn't have the motivation to read for fun anymore. I really just didn't have the time, and I would feel guilty whenever I would read because I was like, well, I could be doing homework or I could be studying, and maybe if I hadn't spent time reading those books, I could have gotten a better grade. And what a fun time that was. Question 3 is, name one book that got you out of a slump. And honestly, I can't really think of an answer how my reading mood tends to cycle. It's not usually because of a book that I get out of a reading slump. It just kind of happens. Whatever I happen to be reading is just happenstance. Sometimes I'll be out of my reading slump before I'm even reading anything. Sometimes it'll be like right at the very end of a book, but usually it'll have like pretty much nothing to do with the actual book that I'm reading at that time. And it's just entirely my mood, basically. So I don't really have an answer for that one. Sorry. Question 4 is, name one book that got you into a slump. This one. Without a doubt, it was this one. Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. Yeah, I really didn't enjoy this book, or really this entire trilogy as a whole. Was not a fan of it. I didn't mind parts of it. I think I gave the other books like relatively high ratings, but like looking back on them, I really didn't enjoy them, especially this one. I think it took about 9 months for me to get through this book. And there was a good chunk in the middle of that where I was like, okay, I'm not going to let myself read anything else until I finish this book. And then I think 3 weeks went by and I hadn't read a single page of anything when I finally was like, okay, I'm gonna read something else and just keep like slowly working at this. And I didn't finish this until I finally got into audiobooks, and I listened to the last probably 40% of it in one night, I think. I just blasted through the rest of it in one night and just got it out of the way. I was up all night because I knew that if I did not finish it in that night, I was never going to. So I made myself do it. I barely paid attention. Just so much what the fuck happening? Like what? Ugh. I don't like this book. Yeah, finishing this book was such a relief, and I'm very glad that I'm done with this trilogy. Question 5 is, what other things do you do while in a reading slump? I watch a lot of Netflix, mainly TV shows, especially sitcoms where the episodes are like half an hour long. Those are great. I just fly through those. A lot of comedy as well, because normally when I'm in a reading slump, because I read mostly fantasy, I don't want to watch a fantasy show or movie because I just feel like I could be spending this time reading a book with a similar theme and then I feel bad. So I tend to watch a lot of comedy and reality shows. I also tend to smoke a lot more weed when I'm slumping. Don't do drugs, kids. Read books instead. And there's also just a lot of like lazing around the house, staring off into space. I get a lot more into my phone games. I have a whole bunch of games on my phone that I normally play only when I'm listening to audiobooks, but when I'm slumping, I'll just spend hours playing these like completely mindless games in silence. Which is probably not healthy, but whatever. Question 6, while in a slump, do you still watch a lot of Booktube? Absolutely. I'm pretty much constantly watching Booktube. I think at this point there are maybe only like 3 YouTubers who aren't Booktubers that I still watch. I do watch a lot of PlantTube as well, but like mainly it's just Booktube. I definitely still watch Booktube constantly when I'm slumping. Booktube also helps me get out of slumps too, because hearing and watching people get excited over books also gets me excited over books, so that often will help me get out of a slump as well. So yeah, I definitely keep watching Booktube. Question 7 is give one tip to get out of a slump. I definitely recommend audiobooks. That's my #1 thing for when I've been in a slump for way too long. I'll pick a book that I want to read, like it's still on my TBR, but I'm not like crazy excited for it. I'll pick that one and listen to it on audio. If I don't pay attention fully, I don't really care that much. But also audiobooks are great to get out of slumps for me, because I can just kind of sit there and be doing other things and be distracted and zone out and, you know, do all of my normal slumpy, slouchy things while still reading a book. And just being able to finish something, even if I didn't retain like half of the thing that I read, just being able to be like, hey, I just finished a book, that I find is really good for motivation and helps me get back into the reading mood again. I'm not really sure what I did before I got into audiobooks, but I must have just dealt with it. But I started listening to audiobooks I think last year, and now it's like half the stuff that I read is on audio now. I love audiobooks. They're a fantastic tool. They're great. Definitely really good. Especially when I'm slumping, like I'll just put on an audiobook when I'm out walking, or if I'm like going to the grocery store, walking to work. Times when I would either have music in or have silence, I'll instead do an audiobook. That way like I don't feel like I have to sit down and take time out of my day to read because I'm already out doing a thing. So definitely recommend that. And the last question is recommend one book to get out of a reading slump, and for this one I'm going to choose 1,000 Beginnings and Endings by Ellen O and Elsie Chapman. I'm picking this one, but really I would recommend any short story collection. I find that these are great to get out of slumps because the stories are normally only about 50 pages each, so it feels a lot quicker to get through. And this one was just so beautiful. The stories were all really, really good. There were definitely a few stories that I liked less, but there were no stories that I didn't like at all. I liked every single story in this collection, which is so rare. So I would definitely recommend this one or any short story collection that you have on your TBR. So those are all the questions for this tag. I am going to tag people this time. I think I forgot to in like literally every other tag video that I've ever done. So I'm going to tag Jordan over at Sorry Booked Solid, Robbie over at And There's No Stuck in a Book, because Robbie, you read so many books and I need to know how you do it. Like, what is your secret? How do you seemingly not ever slump? Like, tell me your secrets, please. And finally, I'm tagging Roxanne at Roxanne Can Read as well. So that'll do it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all are having a fantastic day wherever you are in the world, and I will catch you soon. Bye!